Grace in Haringey, what do you make of what you've been hearing? I mean, absolutely astonishing stuff. What do you make of the special relationship that we have always wanted to keep between the UK and the US? Is today the day it ends?
Well, I think it should, but I don't think it will. I've visited Cuba and Venezuela on a few occasions. And I'm utterly appalled at this action. I see parallels with the invasion of Iraq. We know we were all fed a tissue of lies about the weapons of mass destruction, but they invaded anyway. And in the same way, this drumming up about the drugs in Venezuela, it's been proven that it is coming from other countries. But like Iraq, the US wants the oil. That is the crude facts of the matter. And as far as I'm concerned, he is a thug. We have a thug in charge. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes over the whole of Latin America. And quite frankly, he will make Putin look like an amateur.
What do you want Sir Keir Starmer to say? Thus far, no reaction, as we know, from number 10.
It's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I'm appalled. I'm utterly appalled. And I despair because I think it's all, the people that are in power are just thugs. It's just a mafia thing. And we don't have... If Blair had stood up to Bush and said, no, the case for the weapons of mass destruction is not proven.
Blair believed it, if you ask him even now.
I doubt that.
But look, the question is...
The other thing is, another point I'd like to make, it's just a humorous point in all of this, but I think it's worth saying. Trump has styled himself on being the peacemaker. He wants to get the Nobel. Well, what happened to that? But I was thinking about it. Tony Blair was blessed by the Pope, wasn't he? After the invasion of Iraq, millions of people killed, millions displaced. So Trump probably will get the Nobel. I'm sorry, but this is the world we are living in, where words don't matter. Right is might. That is the world we live in now.
I can't disagree with you on that, Grace. Grace from Haringey, thank you. Let's speak to, finishing at 6, let's hear the thoughts of Francis from Kensington. Shocking, isn't it? What do you think this means? What would you like Sir Keir Starmer to do and to say?
Yes, let's put it this way. I knew this was coming. I phoned in, a year, 2 years ago, and I warned the world that Mr. Trump will follow in the footsteps of Mr. Putin. They are cut from the same cloth. So basically, he's given carte blanche to Mr. Putin to carve out and take as much of Ukraine as he wants. And I said it, and I'll say it again. Nothing will be done about it because European powers are spineless. They would, Trump and his cronies will whip them into submission, unfortunately. So here we go again. Nothing shocks me.
Well, you might be the only one who's not shocked. I think the whole world is reeling from this. I have to say, it is absolutely extraordinary.
So one of my best friends is from Venezuela and lived in the UK for a long time. He used to tell me all the time about the devastation that communism has caused in the Venezuelan economy. And so my main point really is that I don't think most people in the UK and many other countries around the world realise quite the devastation that communism has had on the Venezuelan economy over the last 20 years. I mean, the sheer poverty that has been caused. So education, healthcare, stories of people having to go to such lengths as eating their own pet food because food was so limited. I'm under no illusion that, oil is the key driver for the invasion because, let's face it, there are plenty of other countries around the world where starvation is a big problem. But my Venezuelan friend and many of his friends' view is Trump can have all the oil if he wants it. If we can get back to democracy, get back to rebuilding the economy, basic education, healthcare, etc., they would trade it. Now, I think that's probably a bit extreme, And in reality, the US, of course, are going to take a significant chunk of what are the world's largest oil reserves. I think Venezuela is also up there in terms of gold reserves, in the top handful or so. So there's a lot of wealth to plunder. I'm under no illusion. But, again, my key point is that I don't think most people appreciate how much the people of Venezuela have suffered under communism and the appetite to bring democracy into the country and get communism out.
I think two things can be true at once, Phil. I recognise everything that you're saying about the way that Venezuelan people have suffered under the most recent regimes. I think where my quibble with you comes in is that doesn't give the United States licence to go in the way that they have and to bomb the capital and to effectively kidnap what was an illegitimate leader, absolutely. But it's kind of, who are the United States to force a regime change in that way? And I'm not sure that a president who won a ticket on saying America first really has that much interest in democracy throughout the world and enforcing that.
No, I agree. And I think the drug trade accusations, as most people have been reporting, is just a front, really, an excuse to legitimize it. I don't think that does legitimize it. I think the change of the political system is, in my mind, a bit more justifiable. But I agree, and I've heard commentary on other stations about it setting a dangerous precedent to other dictators to feel they have the right to invade other nations they have beef with. So it's a tricky one. I think, had he not taken these extreme steps, it likely would have dragged on for a lot longer. So in some ways, I understand it. I'm sort of in mixed minds about whether it's right to do or not. But my key point was just to highlight how much people have suffered, which most people in the UK and other countries don't necessarily realise. Could he have done it in a more legitimate way, going through the UN or other bodies? I don't know. But anyway,
Thank you, Phil, for that. And I think it is important to remember the perspective from Venezuelans, many of whom I'm sure will be celebrating at the fact that Maduro has gone. I just am not sure that they will be celebrating the fact that Donald Trump has said, we will now run this area. I mean, that is colonial rhetoric. Whether you think it's a colonial project is a matter for debate, but that statement in of itself is a colonial statement. So what does this mean then for the future of international law? I was very struck by what Phil said there about other leaders. He actually said other dictators, which I thought was quite telling, but other leaders throughout the world taking this as license. What does it mean for China and Taiwan? What does it mean for Russia and Ukraine, and Russia's potentially looking at other areas of Europe as well? Let's see what Elliott in Cheadle has to say. What would you like to tell us?
Oh, Happy New Year, by the way, Natasha.
And to you, Elliott.
To speak to you. Well, the reason I rang you tonight, I wasn't going to get involved in this, but it was the Starmer comment when he was asked about this invasion. And he said, I'm going to have to talk in more detail to Trump. But this is a question of here we go again. Starmer appeasing Trump instead of condemning what he knows is a total violation of international law in the apprehension of Maduro. In his own country, the fact is Maduro is democratically elected. It doesn't matter how questionable his regime may be. It could be very questionable. But then what about Putin, a despot dictator? He's rigged every election, eliminated all his adversaries. He's invaded illegally Ukraine. He's actually kidnapped children, deported them. He's wanted by the International Court for war crimes. Why doesn't he invade Russia?
That's a good question, and one that I'd actually wish that I'd thought of earlier when I was talking to Phil, because if the aim is to bring democracy, peace and prosperity to the world, then it's not just the fact that he's not standing up to Putin, it's that he's actively enabling Putin in many ways, and those two things don't seem to be consistent.
Well, that's absolutely correct, and that's what crossed my mind before I called the programme. I just cannot understand why Trump does what he does. You see, it doesn't make rational or even business sense to invade Venezuela. Yes, it might make sense to try and get hold of the oil supplies because it's necessary. They have a dictator in Maduro. I think that's fairly obvious. But at the same time, he's still the elected president of Venezuela, and they've seized him, and they now are wishing to try him in another country. I can't understand how we can sit back and allow that to happen.
Well, time will tell. Elliott, thank you for your call. Time will tell what our response here in the UK will be. Keir Starmer, the statement he made earlier appeared to be him trying to buy some time to kind of understand how it's happened and come up with a considered response, which he has been criticised for. But I quite like that from him, actually, that he's just taking a minute because it took us all by surprise, including the UK government.